I am Milton Babbitt, and in 1957 I wrote, at the behest of the then editor of a magazine cryptically entitled High Fidelity, an article to which I gave the title The Composer as Specialist. Without my knowledge, and therefore assuredly without my consent, the editor decided that a more provocative title was demanded, and entitled it, Who Cares If You Listen? A title which conveys little of the letter and nothing of the spirit of the article. But although the fact of this imposed title has long since been widely noted, even in that periodical in which the original sin was committed, there have been and still are those, particularly journalists, who have found it ideologically convenient to disregard the facts of the matter and forever to identify me primarily as the author of that article with that provocatively arrogant and, for me, vulgar title. In that article, I was concerned simply to characterize the milieu of the composer and his music, the American composer of serious, cultivated music, referred to by the public anachronistically as classical music, which may explain why they assume that all classical composers are dead, for indeed I know of none who have survived from the second half of the 18th century. But it is this unawareness of the presence and of the works of the contemporary composer that can be viewed as the point of arrival of my article. Such composers were then, and still are, mainly dependent upon the university as a haven for, and at least an indirect patron of, informed musical activity in all of its manifestations. So when in my article I compared the condition of the composer with that of the physicist, it was only to the degree that their pursuits and accomplishments were equally little understood and appreciated by the public, even by their university colleagues. But I did not extend the analogy beyond that. After all, in the university, the physicist's pursuits were treated with respect, even awe, while the composer's were treated as trivial pursuits, and even the musical monuments of the past to which lip service was paid were regarded as anyone's anodyne, a passing nepenthe. But by invoking the familiar fallacy of composition, it was assumed that I was equating the nature of musical composition with that of physics. But I could have just as validly, for the purpose of my point, invoked the fields of mathematics or analytical philosophy, but I eschewed the first for fear of arousing that silly misapprehension of mathematical music, and the latter, analytical philosophy, because it would be assumed that as an unreconstructed, did not have to be born again logical empiricist, I was founding the analogy on my particular methodological persuasion. I surely did not write the article in the hope of endowing our music with the reflected prestige of physics or any other more respectable or respected domain. I did hope to arouse at least curiosity with respect to our curious music that I attempted, oh so sketchily, to characterize. I was prepared to have this music termed academic, for although that was assumed to be a term of automatic derogation in some quarters, I was comfortable, even pleased with it. For in the academy there are those with whom one can talk and who are worth listening to, and the academy in music, as in other fields of creative intellection, at least accepted and often fostered the responsibly advanced and the informedly problematical. Over 30 years after the publication of The Composer as Specialist, in 1989, the periodical Perspectives of New Music published a symposium on being an American composer. My contribution, which I am about to read, has not been retitled by anyone, and may not reflect the years of hope and relative glory which have come and gone in those intervening 3 decades since The Composer as Specialist. But it does reach back even a quarter of a century before that, in order to reconsider the sources of our present with little cause for hope and not even dreams of glory.